Ambassador Gray stood perfectly still, his large silver eyes growing wider by the second. The human in front of him had just told him something that had to be a joke. It simply had to be. "I'm sorry," Gray said, his translator working overtime to keep his voice steady. "You're saying you willingly jumped off a cliff last weekend. For fun." Tom Baker, the United Nations representative, smiled brightly. "Oh yeah, base jumping is amazing. The rush you get when you're free-falling is just incredible. I've been doing it for 5 years now." Gray's assistant, Junior Diplomat Green, was frantically taking notes on his datapad, his 3-fingered hands shaking. This was their first official meeting with Earth's leaders, and things were already going very differently from the standard first contact protocol. The meeting room at the UN headquarters was filled with delegates from various Earth nations. The Galactic Council's first contact team had expected a formal, serious discussion about Earth's potential membership in the galactic community. Instead, they were learning disturbing fact after disturbing fact about humans. "And this, coffee," Gray continued, pointing at the dark liquid that most humans in the room were drinking. "You're aware it's a stimulant drug, correct?" "Of course," replied Mary Wilson, another representative. She took a long sip from her cup, her 4th one that morning. "Couldn't live without it. Anyone want another round?" Several hands went up around the room. Green's notepad clattered to the floor. The thing that truly baffled Gray was how casual they all were about it. Here were Earth's supposedly most distinguished leaders, freely admitting to consuming mind-altering substances and throwing themselves off high places. And they were smiling about it. "Perhaps," Gray suggested carefully, "we should discuss your planet's technological achievements instead." That was safe territory. All species appreciated discussing their technological progress. "Oh, sure." Tom brightened up even more. "Just last month we set a new record for speed climbing on Mount Everest. The climber used some amazing new gear we developed, lost 2 toes to frostbite, but she said it was totally worth it." Gray felt his color-changing skin shift from its diplomatic silver to a horrified pale blue. "Lost body parts, willingly?" "Well, it's all part of the adventure, isn't it?" Tom shrugged. "Speaking of adventure, after this meeting, a few of us are going skydiving. Would any of you like to join? First jump is always the most exciting." The entire alien delegation took an instinctive step backward. Gray's skin was now cycling through various shades of blue and green. "We that won't be necessary," Gray managed to say. "I believe we have gathered enough information for today." As the alien delegation hurriedly prepared to leave, they overheard 2 humans discussing something called Ghost Pepper Eating Contest for the weekend. Green quickly accessed Earth's database to understand what this meant, then promptly fainted. Back on their ship, Gray sat in his chamber, trying to compose his report to the Galactic Council. How could he explain what he'd witnessed? These humans weren't just unusual. They were completely insane by galactic standards. They deliberately sought out dangerous situations, consumed substances that altered their mental state, and seemed to enjoy activities that could lead to death or serious injury. "Sir," Green interrupted his thoughts, having recovered from his fainting spell, "I've compiled some initial statistics about human recreational activities. You might want to sit down for this." Gray looked at the report and felt his skin turn white, the color of absolute shock in his species. Humans didn't just do these things occasionally. They had entire industries built around extreme sports. They held competitions for who could eat the spiciest food. They watched entertainment specifically designed to frighten them. "Send an urgent message to the Council," Gray ordered. "Mark it as highest priority. The humans, they're all crazy. Every single one of them. And the scariest part." He looked out the ship's window at Earth below. They seemed to be proud of it. Green nodded nervously and began transmitting the message. Neither of them knew it yet, But this was just the beginning of the Galactic Council's journey into understanding the beautiful insanity of human nature. Dr. Blue was the Galactic Council's most experienced behavioral analyst. In 300 years of studying alien species, nothing had prepared him for humans. He sat in his observation pod outside a human dwelling, watching through his high-tech scanners, and trying not to panic. Log entry 47. He spoke into his recorder. The human female has just returned from what they call a gym. For the third time this week, she has deliberately torn her muscle fibers through repeated lifting of heavy objects. She appears to be smiling about it. His assistant, Observer Red, looked up from his own scanner. "Doctor, you need to see this. The male human next door is doing something even stranger." Dr. Blue adjusted his viewing screen and nearly dropped his recorder. The human was sitting on his couch, watching something called a horror movie, while eating food that was clearly causing him distress. The human is consuming something called extra hot wings, while deliberately frightening himself with fictional entertainment. Dr. Blue noted, his voice trembling. When approached about this behavior, he claimed it was Friday night fun. The council had assigned them to spend one Earth month studying everyday human behavior. After Ambassador Gray's disturbing first contact report, they needed to understand just how deep this human madness went. "Sir," Red called out again, "there's a small human in the park across the street. It's climbing a tree." "What? But there's no food or resources up there." Dr. Blue watched in horror as the child reached dangerous heights, while the parent merely watched and took pictures. He quickly added to his log, "Human young are encouraged to engage in risky behavior. Parents document these moments with pride. This species appears to be training for danger from an early age." Their investigation continued throughout the day. Each observation was more disturbing than the last. They watched humans, running for no apparent reason, not being chased by anything. Playing with predatory animals they called pets. Eating food that was technically poisonous, like something called chocolate. Deliberately staying awake past their natural sleep cycle to binge watch shows. By evening, Dr. Blue had filled 3 data pads with observations. He was preparing to end the day's monitoring when all his sensors suddenly went crazy. "What's happening?" he asked Red, who was frantically checking readings. "A gathering. Sir, the humans call it a barbecue party. They're deliberately gathering around controlled fire to cook food. And oh no. What is it? They're sharing stories about something called extreme sports and planning future dangerous activities together. It appears to be some sort of danger appreciation society." Dr. Blue watched as the humans laughed, shared spicy food, and excitedly planned future adventures involving mountains, deep seas, and high speeds. One of them was even bringing out something called a trampoline for the children. "Emergency transmission to the council," Dr. Blue dictated. "Initial findings indicate that human behavior cannot be classified under any known psychological framework. They appear to actively seek situations that other species instinctively avoid. Most alarming of all, this behavior appears to be contagious. They encourage each other to try increasingly dangerous activities." He paused, watching as an elderly human joined the children on the trampoline. Additional note: age does not appear to cure them of this madness. If anything, some humans seem to become more adventurous with age, requesting immediate consultation with the Council's psychology department. Though I fear they may not be prepared for what we've discovered. Red looked up from his instruments. "Sir, should we warn the Council about the humans' plan for something called a neighborhood paintball war next weekend?" Dr. Blue's color faded several shades lighter. "Added to the emergency report. At this rate, we'll need to create an entirely new classification system just for humans. They're not just crazy. They're systematically, methodically, and enthusiastically crazy." He looked back at the barbecue gathering, where humans were now planning a group skydiving event while eating peppers that made their faces turn red. "May the galaxy help us all," he whispered. The Galactic Council's emergency meeting chamber was packed. On the massive view screen, images of human exercise activities played one after another. Council members watched in horror as humans lifted heavy weights, ran on moving platforms that went nowhere, and twisted themselves into impossible positions in something called yoga. Professor Yellow, the Council's leading expert on species development, stood at the podium trembling. As you can see, he pointed to the screen showing a CrossFit competition. Humans deliberately exhaust themselves. They call this getting pumped. They even pay money to access special buildings called gyms where they can torture themselves more efficiently. The Council President White raised a shaky hand. Are you saying they do this voluntarily? Worse, Yellow continued. They set alarm clocks to wake up early specifically to do this. Some even do it before their standard work cycles begin. A collective gasp filled the chamber. The screen now showed a marathon. Thousands of humans running for hours, pushing their bodies to the limit. Some were even smiling. But surely, Council Member Brown interrupted, this is some sort of survival training. No, Yellow said grimly. They call it fun and staying healthy. They even have something called ultra-marathons, where they run for days through the most hostile environments they can find. Council Member Brown fainted. Yellow pulled up another image. This is something they call leg day. Humans deliberately damage their leg muscles to make them stronger. The next day, they have trouble walking. They call this feeling the burn and consider it a sign of success. Success. President White's voice cracked. Success at what? At achieving something they call gains, Yellow explained. They take pictures of themselves looking pained and share them on something called social media. Other humans then encourage this behavior with likes and follows. The chamber erupted in confused chatter. One council member was stress-eating emergency ration packets. There's more, Yellow continued, his voice getting higher. They have invented thousands of ways to exercise. When normal exercise becomes too easy, they invent harder versions. Look at this. The screen showed people doing push-ups with claps. But why? Someone shouted from the back. Because regular push-ups weren't challenging enough anymore, Yellow replied. They keep inventing new ways to make simple exercises more difficult. Some humans even walk on their hands for fun. President White had to call for order as several council members began panic-molting. And here's the most disturbing part, Yellow said, pulling up a final set of images. They have exercise competitions. They gather in large numbers to watch humans lift the heaviest weights possible, run the fastest, or see who can do the most repetitions of an exercise. The winners are celebrated and become role models for young humans. Are you suggesting, President White asked, that this behavior is spreading? Spreading? Mr. President, it's their normal way of life. They have something called New Year's resolutions, where they promise to exercise even more than they already do. The emergency medical team was now busy attending to several council members who had collapsed. My research team found a human phrase that explains their philosophy, Yellow concluded. No pain, no gain. The chamber fell silent. No pain, no gain. President White repeated slowly, as if the words themselves might bite. Yes, sir. They believe that discomfort and physical stress are necessary for improvement. Some even say they feel bad if they don't exercise regularly. They call it being out of shape and consider it undesirable. Yellow looked around the chamber at his shocked colleagues. Distinguished council members, we must face the truth. Humans don't just endure hardship. They actively seek it out. They create it when none exists. And most terrifying of all, he paused for effect. They're trying to get better at it. As the council chambers descended into chaos, Yellow packed up his presentation materials. He had decided not to show them the obstacle course races yet. Some truths were too terrifying for one day. The council's psychology department was in complete disarray. Chief Psychologist Purple stared at the entertainment data streaming in from Earth, his 3 hearts beating erratically. Behind him, his entire staff was either hiding under desks or taking anxiety medication. "Play the video again," he ordered, even though each viewing made him more distressed. The screen showed humans riding something called a roller coaster. They were strapped into small cars, being hurled through the air at dangerous speeds, turning upside down and screaming with joy. "Sir," his assistant said weakly, "there's something else you need to see. Humans have places called haunted houses where they pay money to be scared." Purple's color faded several shades lighter. "They pay to be frightened?" "Yes, sir. And during something called Halloween, they dress up as scary things and frighten each other for fun. Even the children participate." The data continued pouring in. Horror movies, bungee jumping, zip lines, virtual reality horror games. Humans seem to have endless ways to terrify themselves. "What about normal entertainment?" Purple asked hopefully. "Surely they have something peaceful." His assistant pulled up a new file. "Well, they do have something called action movies where they watch simulated danger and explosions. Also video games where they pretend to be in dangerous situations. And something called Parkour, which is..." The assistant stopped, looking pale. "Which is what?" "It's where they jump between buildings and flip over obstacles for fun. Look at this YouTube channel." Purple watched in horror as humans leaped across rooftops, balanced on railings, and did backflips off walls. The video had millions of views and comments like, "Awesome," and "Wish I could do that." "Get me the council president," Purple said urgently. "This is worse than we thought." 20 minutes later, in the emergency conference room, Purple presented his findings to the council leadership. "Distinguished members," he began, his voice shaking. "Human entertainment defies all known psychological principles. They have created entire industries around activities that should trigger fear responses. But instead of avoiding these experiences, they actively seek them out." He showed them clips of people watching scary movies, their hearts racing, adrenaline pumping, and then immediately planning to watch more. "Here's a human child playing a game called Five Nights at Freddy's," Purple continued. "The child is terrified and enjoying it. They call this fun entertainment." Council President White rubbed his temples. "How do they sleep after experiencing such things?" "That's another issue, sir. Many humans watch these horror movies right before bed. Some even have horror movie marathons that last all night." The council members watched in stunned silence as Purple showed them clips of humans participating in escape rooms, voluntarily being locked up, playing paintball, simulated combat for fun, whitewater rafting, deliberately riding dangerous water currents, rock climbing, scaling cliffs without being chased by predators. "My department has concluded," Purple said gravely, "that humans are the only known species that deliberately seeks out fear as entertainment. They don't just tolerate scary situations. They create them, share them, and encourage others to try them." President White looked troubled. "And they're young. Surely they protect them from such things." "Sir, they have entire theme parks designed for family entertainment. These parks feature dark rides, high-speed attractions, and simulated danger. Parents actually celebrate when their children are tall enough to ride the scariest attractions." The conference room erupted in concerned murmurs. Purple wasn't finished. "And now, they're using new technology to make their entertainment even more intense. Virtual reality, 4D experiences, increasingly realistic simulations. They're constantly inventing new ways to scare themselves." As the council leaders tried to process this information, Purple's assistant rushed in with breaking news. "Sir, humans have just announced something called a horror theme park festival, where they'll combine all their scariest attractions in one place. They're calling it the ultimate thrill experience." Purple's color turned completely white. "May the galaxy have mercy on us all. They're not just crazy. They're innovating new ways to be crazy." General Black, the Galactic Council's top military advisor, had seen many things in his 400-year career, but nothing had prepared him for human military training methods. He stood in his command center, surrounded by screens showing various human military exercises, his face frozen in disbelief. "Let me understand this correctly," he said to his intelligence officer, Major Orange. "They make their soldiers run through fire?" "Yes, sir. They call it confidence training," Orange replied, checking his notes. "And that's not even the most concerning part." The main screen showed human soldiers crawling under barbed wire, while explosions went off around them. Another screen displayed underwater survival training in freezing conditions. "But why?" General Black asked, his military-trained composure finally cracking. "Why make training more dangerous than actual combat?" "According to their philosophies, sir, they believe the more you sweat in training, the less you bleed in war." General Black sat down heavily in his command chair. "Show me more." The screens filled with images of soldiers doing push-ups in the snow, desert survival training in extreme heat, high-altitude parachute jumps at night, combat training in active volcanoes, underwater demolition exercises. "Sir," Orange reported, "humans have something they call special forces. These are soldiers who volunteer for even more extreme training." "More extreme?" General Black's voice cracked. "How is that possible?" Orange pulled up new footage. "These soldiers train to survive in any environment. They learn to eat things most species wouldn't consider food. They sleep while standing up. Some can hold their breath for dangerous lengths of time. For fun." The command center staff watched in horror as human soldiers carried heavy logs through swamps, practiced fighting multiple opponents at once, jumped into frozen lakes for cold weather training, survived for weeks on minimal supplies. "But surely," General Black said hopefully, "this is just a small, elite group." "No, sir," Orange replied grimly. "Regular human soldiers consider this inspirational. Many try to push themselves to similar limits. They have a saying, 'Be all you can be.'" General Black's color darkened with stress. "Are you telling me they voluntarily make everything harder than it needs to be?" "Yes, sir, and there's more. They have civilian programs called boot camps, where regular humans pay to be trained like soldiers. They do this for fitness." The command center fell silent. Several junior officers had to be excused to recover their composure. "Send an immediate report to the council," General Black ordered. "Mark it as highest priority. They need to understand what we're dealing with here." Just then, a junior analyst burst into the command center. "Sir, you need to see this. Humans have something called recreational military simulation games, where civilians pretend to be soldiers for entertainment." General Black watched footage of paintball and airsoft battles, his military training barely keeping him composed. "So let me summarize," he said, standing up and pacing. "Humans deliberately make their military training more dangerous than necessary. Their soldiers volunteer for even more extreme training, and their civilians imitate military activities for fun." "Correct, sir," Orange confirmed. "They call it building character." General Black looked at the screens one last time. A group of human soldiers was celebrating after completing a particularly grueling training exercise, covered in mud and grinning widely. "In all my years," he said quietly, "I've never seen a species that actively seeks out hardship to become stronger. Most try to make things easier, but humans—" He shook his head. "Humans look at the easy way and deliberately choose the hard way. And they smile while doing it." As his staff prepared the report for the council, General Black added one final note. "Traditional military deterrents may be ineffective against humans. They appear to actually enjoy impossible challenges. Heaven help any species that makes them angry." The council's science division was in chaos. Lead researcher Gold stood before his team, pointing at complex diagrams of human biology projected on the wall. After months of study, they had finally discovered what made humans so different, and the results were terrifying. "Look at these readings," Gold said, tapping the screen showing brain chemistry patterns. When humans do something dangerous, their bodies release chemicals that make them feel good. His assistant, Lab Tech Silver, nodded nervously. They become addicted to their own chemical reactions. The more dangerous the activity, the bigger the rush. The laboratory was filled with data from hundreds of human subjects. Charts, graphs, and brain scans covered every available surface. The science team had been working nonstop to understand the human phenomenon. Watch this test subject, Gold continued, playing a video. This human just jumped out of a perfectly good aircraft. Look at their brain activity. They're not just scared, they're excited. The scientists watched as the skydiver's readings showed a massive spike in adrenaline, endorphins, and other chemicals. Most disturbing of all, the human was smiling. "Sir," Silver interrupted, "you need to see these new findings about their pain tolerance." Gold moved to another screen showing comparison charts between humans and other species. The results were shocking. "This can't be right," he muttered. "According to these readings, humans can continue functioning even with multiple injuries. They actually have to be reminded to rest and heal." The science team had discovered that humans had something they called second wind, an ability to push past normal exhaustion limits. Even more bizarre, they would deliberately push themselves to these limits during something called training. "Look at this marathon runner." Silver pointed to another screen. Their body is telling them to stop. They're in pain, and yet they keep going. They call this pushing through the wall. Gold shook his head in disbelief. In any other species, this would be considered a serious malfunction of self-preservation instincts. But in humans, it's normal. The team had also uncovered something else disturbing. Humans were getting better at being extreme. Each generation seemed to push the limits further. Higher jumps, faster speeds, more dangerous stunts, greater endurance challenges. "Sir," a junior researcher called out, "I've finished analyzing their entertainment media. Humans actually share videos of their dangerous activities to inspire others. They call them challenge videos." Gold felt a headache coming on. So they're not just crazy. They're encouraging others to be crazy too. The evidence was undeniable. Humans weren't just tolerating danger. They were actively seeking it, documenting it, and challenging others to go even further. "There's something else," Silver added quietly. "We've found that when humans are told something is impossible, they become more determined to do it." The laboratory fell silent as this sank in. "Are you saying," Gold asked slowly, "that telling humans they can't do something makes them want to do it more?" "Exactly, sir. They have countless stories about people achieving impossible things just because someone said they couldn't." Gold walked to the window, looking out at the earth in the distance. "Do you realize what this means? We're not dealing with just another species. We're dealing with beings who are chemically rewarded for taking risks, physically capable of pushing past normal limits, and psychologically driven to overcome any challenge." He turned back to his team. "Send an immediate report to the council. They need to understand. Humans aren't going to change. This isn't a cultural phenomenon or a phase. It's literally in their biology. They're engineered by evolution to be the craziest species in the galaxy." As his team prepared the report, Gold added one final note. "Warning. Attempting to restrict or control human behavior may result in them trying even harder to do the restricted activity. The only predictable thing about humans is their constant desire to exceed their limits." The Grand Council chamber was packed for the final vote on Earth's membership. Every species representative was present, their nervous energy filling the massive room. President White stood at the central podium, trying to maintain order as the latest human news played on the giant screens. "Order, order," he called out. "We must make our final decision about Earth's membership today." Ambassador Gray, who had made first contact, stepped forward. "Distinguished council members, before you vote, you should know that humans have just broken another record. A human has completed a solo wingshoot flight from the edge of space, while solving a Rubik's Cube. The chamber erupted in chaos. They did what? Someone shouted. How is that even possible? Asked another. For fun, a third voice squeaked. Dr. Blue, the behavioral analyst, quickly pulled up the video. The council watched in horror as a human, seemingly unconcerned about being at the edge of space, calmly solved a puzzle while plummeting through the atmosphere at incredible speeds. That's not all, General Black added grimly. They're planning something called the Ultimate Challenge Series, combining extreme sports, military obstacles, and survival challenges into one event. They're calling it fun for the whole family. Several council members fainted. Professor Yellow stepped up, and their response to our concerns about their dangerous behaviors. They've invited us to join them for something called a beginner's bungee jumping session. They say it's perfectly safe and great for team building. The chamber fell silent. President White looked at the worried faces around him. Every report, every study, every interaction with humans had only confirmed their worst fears. Humans weren't just different. They were fundamentally, incredibly, and unashamedly crazy. We have 3 options, President White announced. 1. Reject their membership. 2. Accept their membership. 3. Delay the decision for further study. Dr. Gold from the Science Division raised his hand. Sir, I must point out that rejecting their membership might make them more determined to join. Remember, they're chemically rewarded for overcoming challenges. And delay isn't wise, General Black added. They're advancing rapidly. Yesterday, I saw a human child learning parkour moves from watching videos. They're getting more extreme by the day. President White rubbed his temples. Then what do you suggest? Ambassador Gray stepped forward again. Sir, I have spent the most time with humans. They're crazy, yes, but they're also impressive. They push boundaries we never knew existed. They see limits as suggestions, and most importantly, he paused, they're starting to influence other species. What do you mean? President White asked, alarmed. Some of our younger citizens have started watching human stunt videos. 3 members of my staff have expressed interest in trying something called rock climbing. And yesterday, I caught myself watching an entire marathon of human survival shows. The council members looked at each other in shock. The humans' madness was spreading. I propose, Gray continued, that we accept their membership immediately. Not because we approve of their crazy behavior, but because we need to keep them close, guide them, and maybe learn a little from their courage. President White called for the vote. The result was unanimous. Earth would join the Galactic Council. But he added, reading from the acceptance document, with a special classification, the crazy ones, approach with caution, and will add a warning label. Exposure to humans may result in increased risk-taking behavior and reduced fear of danger. As the council members filed out, many still shaking their heads in disbelief, Ambassador Gray looked at the Earth displayed on the main screen. A small smile crossed his face as he watched a group of humans preparing for something called a base jumping competition. They're completely crazy, he muttered to himself. But maybe that's exactly what this galaxy needs.